The Great Four were young and talented sons of the tribes, and every one of them was the best of his skill. Tonteg of the Pumas, the best warrior and sailor, created the Wave Slider, the boat with three hulls that no one had ever seen before. Amovis of the Snakes, the one who knew every island and every herb, added to it the Depth Claw, an anchor able to hold the boat in any storm. Etuar of the Birds, the one who knew the winds and stars, raised the Windcatcher, the sturdiest sail which no storm can rip, on the lightest mast, capable of catching even the slightest wind. Salon of the Buffaloes, a skilled craftsman with a sharp mind, crafted the reef fin, the perfect rudder that can maneuver the boat with absolute ease. Thus, the first Stormbreaker was made, and the Great Four became its first crew, and they set their goal beyond the fogs of the Belt to the forbidden yet desired Bimini. Hey there, everyone. I am Thakard. This is Survival Fountain of Youth. Welcome back. New guide video, obviously, today. And if you haven't figured it out yet, we're talking about lore. Specifically, the natives' lore. Now, why is this important? Well, it's a good story, to be perfectly honest. But also, each one of these native lore story bits gives you a skill point. And let's be honest, that's what you guys are really interested in, okay? So, how am I going to do this video? I've decided I'm going to do this in the order in which we will be playing through it. So we will be covering Region 1 first, and then we'll go to Region 2, Region 3, so on and so forth. Say we are on an island like the Island of Hope that has multiple story bits. We will go from the earliest story, so story number 1, all the way to the latest story, whatever, story number 18 or something. If you are looking for a very specific story, say you're missing like story 15 and you want to figure out where it is, check the description down below. I will be subdividing all these back into an easy to read order of the different story bits in the description. So if you are looking for a specific thing, look down below in the description. Okay, let's get into this. We will be headed to the Island of Hope in the bird region, all the way up to the white sign for story number 1. The first of our story bits is the Song of the Birds. This tells the story of the bird tribe that lived on the Island of Hope. Now, this one, as I said, is up by the white sign in the mountains above everything in the Island of Hope. It's pretty easy to see from down below. Once you hike up to it, it's very easy to see where the actual piece of story is located. Story piece number 8 will be our next one, the Song of the Fountain. This piece describes the return of the Great Four from the Bimini Island and their happy news of the discovery of the Fountain of Youth. Now, this will be located at the Water Temple. This water temple is just south of the inlet on the Island of Hope, and you will have to do the water temple puzzle where you will find the various pieces that are left around the area, and you will combine them back into the mural itself to get the point. The next story is story number 12, the Song of the Great Thirst. Now, in the Song of the Great Thirst, we learn about how there just wasn't enough water to go around. The Fountain of Youth only had so much water and it refilled slowly, and there were too many people that wanted the water on the islands. This song piece is located just to the south of the Water Temple in the mountains at the pillar site. And in fact, the piece that you need to click on is actually the pillar at the pillar site. Song 15 is probably found by most people by accident. This is the Song of the Golden Age. This discusses the golden age of the Bimini civilizations, where they had a competition for just who can drink the water and bring it back to whomever they pleased. This story piece can be revealed by using the giant head that sits at the base of the mountain path where the mountain path reaches the jungle. This is pretty centrally located on the Island of Hope, so it's pretty easy to find. Now, discovering this next piece is going to get a little bit dangerous, because piece 22, Song of the Wrath of the Mortals, is in Jackal territory. The Song of the Wrath of the Mortals describes the great hunt during the year of the high sun, where the poisoned went and found all the immortals and slew them. This piece of story can be located on the northern side of the Island of Hope, like I said, in the Jackal region. It is at the burn pit, as I like to call it, which, well, has a lot of evidence of violence, as well as this very interesting story piece. The last story piece on the Island of Hope is story piece number 23, Song of the Punishment of the Gifted. This story talks about the final killing of the rest of the immortals, the families of the highest ones, also known as the Gifted Ones, as they were gathered together on the south side of the island at the sacrificial altar, fed poison, and then cast into the sea to drown. The piece you are looking for is a giant blue mural on the southern side of the island. Finding the sacrificial altar is very easy, and the giant blue mural is just up the beach along the mountainside. Now that we have finished with the bird region, we're going to move to the buffalo region. And first off is the Copper Island with 3 different story pieces. Speaking of 3, the first story on the Copper Island is the 3rd story, the Song of the Buffaloes. This story talks about exactly what the buffalo tribe was. Now, to find this, you are going to go to one of my favorite locations in the game, this beautiful little temple to the northwest section of the Copper Island. Obviously, there are a lot of tegus and other dangerous animals nearby, so be careful in this area, but take a moment and look at this little temple. It's just gorgeous. Story piece number 13, The Song of the Best People, is also located on the northern side of the Copper Island, this time to the far east. The Song of the Best People is the story of how the Great Council of the Tribes decided how to deal with the Great Thirst. And they would have a competition to weed out the most brave, the most knowledgeable, the strongest of their people to be able to go to the Fountain of Youth and get the Water of Life. The final piece of the story on the Copper Island is story piece 24, Song of the Last Days. This describes the poisoners after they had killed the highest ones and the gifted ones, as they slowly died over a 16-year period, until the very last of the Bimini people had perished. To find this piece, you are going to want to go to the central part of the Copper Island, and you will find a small cave along the southern edge of the rocky mountain area. Inside, you'll find snakes and scorpions, as well as the Song of the Last Days. Our next story piece 6, is taking us to the Red Island. Now this one, the Song of the Great Four and the First Stormbreaker, is the bit of dialogue you heard me reading at the beginning of this episode. And it describes the Great Four, how they made the Stormbreaker, and then their trip to Bimini. To find this one, you are going to have to, well, just go up into the mountains of the Red Island. You can see this one kind of from all over the island. It's this giant head statue at the top of the mountain, and it just kind of glows night and day way at the top. The final story located in the Buffalo region is story piece number 9, The Song of the Great Madness. This story depicts how the people kind of went crazy after they had learned about the Fountain of Youth. They tried to get to the island of Bimini as best they could. Thousands of boats were lost as they crashed upon the Bimini belt. The sharks were well fed and the waters turned red with blood. This became known as the Year of the Great Madness. To find this story piece, you are going to have to solve the puzzles inside of the giant mine on the Windy Island. When you finally get into the chamber and you see this giant, beautiful dead tree, you will see the story piece at the base of it. Moving on to the Puma region, our very first story is the Song of the Pumas, story number 2. The Song of the Pumas is, well, all about the culture of the Puma tribe. To find this one, you are going to have to go to the Iron Island, hike yourself up to the front entrance of the Volcano Temple, Iron Mine, it's a little of both, and then move on back through it and go off to your left. Eventually, after, well, some pumas and some snakes and some scorpions, you will go through a hallway and you will find this nice little mural up a couple of steps along the wall. Story piece number 10, the Song of Unity, is up next. The Song of Unity talks about how the Great Four and the elders of the four tribes were able to dissuade the people who were dying as they were trying to get to Bimini from taking on the trip. They convinced them that instead of trying to do this alone, which would only lead to death, they needed to work together as a people so everybody could prosper. To retrieve story piece 10, you are going to have to go to the Underwater Temple. This is a part of the main storyline, and you have to solve a couple of puzzles, but once you do, you can go into the main ante-room of this temple, where you will find a giant mural along the wall, as well as some other things. There are some other things in there too. The final piece in the Puma region is piece number 20, the Song of the Stormbreaker's Divide. This story tells of how, after the burning of the ships during the War of the Mortals and Immortals, the Immortals took the knowledge to build the Stormbreakers and wrote them down on a copper tablet. They then split this tablet into many pieces, hiding them all over various islands. Therefore, the mortals had no way to build any more Stormbreakers and were cut off from the Fountain of Youth. To find this piece, you will need to go to the Craggy Island. Once you do, it's very easy to see. As you enter the island, it will be immediately right in front of you. Story number 4, Song of the Snakes, will be the first one we will talk about from the Snake region. Now, the Song of the Snakes discusses the snake tribe's culture. To obtain this piece, you are going to have to go to the southern portion of the Sulphur Island. Once you get into the sulfur pits, you will discover a wall puzzle. After you figure out how to, finish the wall puzzle, you can then read the story of the Song of the Snakes. For story number 16, Song of the Immortals' Pride, we are going to stay on the Sulphur Island. We're actually going to go just a little further north and west into the region of the swamps. Now, the Song of the Immortals' Pride is all about how absolute power corrupts absolutely. The best ones began to nominate their own children and loved ones as a group of people who would not need to do the trials to get to the Fountain of Youth. They referred to these people as the Marked Ones. They were able to go to the Fountain of Youth before any of the other people who had to do the trials. Story section 11, the Song of the Great Order, is going to take us over to the Crocodile Island. Now, the Song of the Great Order describes a period of relative peace and prosperity for the Bimini peoples after the Great Madness. During this time, they built large fleets of Stormbreakers, and they would take large trips bringing back massive amounts of water for all the people. The Song of Great Order can be found on the northern part of the Crocodile Island within the Stone Labyrinth. This is a giant mountainous area of canyons that you must find your way through and then solve a puzzle at the very end of it to reach this specific story. Story number 21 is the Song of the Poison Wells. This is the story of the culmination of the War of the Mortals, where the Immortals poisoned the wells of the mortals with dead and dying beasts. This would eventually seal the fate of all of those who lived on the islands. Now, to find this one, you are going to have to go deep into the crocodile-infested areas of the Crocodile Island. And when I mean deep, I mean like go to the very center of all the water and all the swamp, and you will find this beautiful little wall with a picture on it. Good luck. Moving over to the Silver Island, we can find Song 17, the Song of the Mortals Uprising. After the corruption of the Best Ones and the nepotism that led to the Marked Ones, the mortals knew that the immortals were no longer respecting them. And in this, their anger grew. And during a feast of the high sun on the Island of Hope, they struck out at the mortals during a feast dinner and slew many of them. Thus began the War of the Immortals. To find this story on the Silver Island, you are going to have to go up a long mountainous path into a region of sulfuric gases, so make sure to bring a gas mask. Once there and past, the dangers of the area, you'll find a small temple with a mural on the back inside wall of it. The final story piece in the Snake region is once again on the Silver Island. Story piece number 18, the Song of the War of the Immortals, talks about how after being attacked at the feast, the immortals from all locations fled to many surrounding islands. There, they were hunted down by the mortals. Therefore, they decided that they would not be able to win by numbers alone, but by their knowledge, for they knew what the weaknesses of the mortals were. To locate this story piece, you will have to go to the northern regions of the Silver Island. You will go up through a series of mountain passes, and then you will come out upon a large set of ruins. In the center of these ruins, you will find a beautiful little mural which will contain the story of the Song of the War of the Immortals. The fifth story, the Song of Bimini, will take us into the Bimini region. This story talks about the Bimini Island and how no man could reach it due to rapid currents, sharp reefs, and thick fogs of the Bimini Belt. The first problem you're going to have to do is getting to the island of Bimini. Once you have that solved, you will find this one pretty early on. It's on the southern section of the island, and it's a series of pillars and other ruins. Our next story piece is story piece number 7, Song of the Journey of the Great Four. I have to say I do really like this one. It talks about how the Great Four left, how the people on the islands waited and waited and waited. And they waited for over 80 years. And finally, the Great Four returned. To find the Song of the Journey of the Great Four, first go to the center of the Bimini Island, and then go along the eastern edge of the Palace of Trials. As you move along the edge, you should be able to find this mural along the northern edge of a rock face. Story 14, The Song of the Palace of Trials, is an easy one to find because once you arrive at Bimini, it's literally sitting there right at the base of the stairs that you have to walk up. So this one is all about the construction of the Palace of Trials. Celine of the Buffaloes took 40 workers, the best of the workers, and they constructed the Palace of Trials, an area where people could be tested to see if they were worthy of the Fountain of Youth. He then, also killed all 40 of those engineers so they couldn't give away the secrets. So that's a thing. Story 19, Song of the Burned Ships, speaks of how the Immortals went forth with their plan to defeat the Mortals. Their first step was the burning of the ships. They went forth and they burned first the Stormbreakers and then all other ships and rafts, so the mortals could no longer traverse the Bimini belt and reach Bimini and the Fountain of Youth. To find this story piece, go to the west of the Palace of Trials, go through the jungle and all the beasties that are trying to eat you, and you will find a set of ruins. Along the outside ring of these ruins, you will find the mural that you are looking for. The 25th and last story, The Song of the Hermit, can be located inside of the Palace of Trials. In fact, you're going to have to beat the Spanish storyline before you are able to actually get this last piece of lore. You do this by passing the final door, and you are granted this story. The Song of a Hermit is written by Etwar of Birds, and it is a warning to use the Fountain of Youth wisely. Otherwise, you will fall into the same trap that the Bimini people did, and you will only be led to destruction. And with that, we have all 25 pieces of the Bimini civilization story. I hope that you guys have found this 1, informational, and 2, entertaining. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, share it with some other people, and leave a comment down below. If you have questions, also leave those in the comments, as well as any suggestions for future content. Alright everybody, this one took a while, but it was a lot of fun, so I hope you really enjoyed it. And I will catch you all next time. Have a good one.